Hi guys, this lesson will be multiplying binomials, and it's when we multiply two expressions together, two brackets together, not just a term to a bracket. Okay, last lesson we multiplied a term into a bracket, but this time we're doing two brackets multiply with each other. Okay, the method I'll teach you today is called FOIL. So essentially means that you multiply the first term, then you multiply the outer terms, then you multiply the inner terms, then you multiply the last term. So what that means is that a plus b times c plus d. So our first multiplication will be a times c. So the first two terms are a and c in the two brackets. The first terms in the two brackets are a and c, right? So a times c will be the f, our FOIL, or our first terms. Our next multiplication will be a times d, which is the outer. So the first term times the outer term here. That's O. Then the I inner. It means these two inner terms next to each other in the brackets. You multiply them, and then the last in the L stands for the last terms. So B times D. So this term, the two last terms in a bracket. So the last term in the first bracket is B. Last term in the second bracket is D. So B times D. Okay. So let's apply it. Okay. So let's rewrite it here. So the first term, F for FOIL. So A times C, the first two terms, equals C. Okay. Our next term is the outer term. Okay. A times D is AD. Okay. Next, B times C is our inner terms. B times C is BC. And B times D is our O. So B times D is BD, the outer terms, the brackets. Okay? Alright, so this is the general form. After you expand the two brackets, you will end up with four terms. That's before you collect the like terms, but we will get to that now for the practice here, okay? So let's apply the same format. 2a times 3a is 6a squared, right? So after first terms, 2a times the negative 5 is negative 10a. Then that is our outer term. Inner term is the negative 1 times 3a, which is negative 3a, and then negative 1 times negative 5 is our last terms, which is 5. Okay, and now we can see that negative 10a and negative 3a are like terms, so we can group them into negative 13a. This will be our final answer. Okay, so remember to collect like terms after you've expanded it into four terms, right? Four terms is when you have two brackets. It could be more terms if you have more brackets than two, but for four terms you have four. For two brackets you have four terms. Sorry. Okay. Let's move on to this one. Now you have two brackets, but there's a little twist. You have a 2 here, right? So it's essentially the same thing. It's still the same format, but you just have a 2 before the bracket. Okay, so there's two ways you can approach this. You can expand this first, or you can expand this first, or you can expand the 2 times s minus 4 first. Personally, I would go for the 2 times s minus 4t first, because when you expand these two, it gets a little bit messy. So I would go ahead and expand the 2 times s minus 4t plus 4t first. when you have three terms like this. Okay, so this is just a distributive property we learned yesterday. So 2 times s is 2s, and 2 times negative 4t is negative 8t. You close that bracket, and now you have a simple binomial. Okay, like now we're back to something that we are familiar with. Okay, now we expand with FOIL. So the first terms, 2s times s, 2s squared. Okay, then our outer term, 2s times positive 5t, that becomes 10 st. Okay, right? And then negative 8t times s, or inner terms, so that will be negative 8ts. And then we got our last terms, which are negative 8t times positive 5t. That will get you negative 40t squared. Alright, so we can group the two terms in the middle because 10st is the same thing as 10ts. Does not matter, it's just the order. So 10ts and 10st is the same thing, just so you know. Okay, so now you have 2s squared. Group these two together, so positive 10st, positive 10ts minus 8ts. So that is what? Positive 2ts minus 40t squared. That is your final answer. Okay, I want to do one more practice question. So let's try this one. Alright, so looking at this, you would think that A and B are different terms, but no, they're the same term. A and B are the same term. The different terms are separated by the addition sign, or subtraction sign, or any sort of sign that separates them. That means that they're different terms. But this one, since they're not separated by anything, any addition or multiplication, or any addition or like subtraction sign, then they are same. Then they're the one singular term. Okay, so A plus B means that they're not similar terms, but AB, yes, they are similar terms. Okay, so that's like a quick heads up for you guys. Okay, so we can treat this as one singular term. So now we can expand using FOIL. So the first two terms, a squared b times ab. So a squared, you can treat so now you can go with them like sort of individually. That you can treat the variables like you can multiply the variables individually because you can't really multiply a to the b here because they're the same term. But so you can treat, so a squared times a here is a cubed, and b times b is b squared. Okay, so a squared b times ab is a cubed b. Alright, okay, and then a squared b, our next multiplication would be the outside. So the first term and the outside term, so a squared b times bc. So a's, so you don't see any a's on this side, so you just bring a down. You do see b on this side, so it's b squared. So b times b is b squared, and you don't see c on this side, on the left side, so you just bring down c. Okay. Next we have the inner terms, b squared c times a b. So do we see any c's in this? No, we don't, so we bring the C down. Do we see any B's? Yes, we see the B in common. We don't see the C in common, so we bring it down. But we do see the B in common, right? So B squared times B is B cubed. And you don't see any you don't see any A's in common either, so we bring the A down. Okay. Lastly, we do B squared C times BC, the last terms, and both B and C are common, these two, so we don't bring anything down, but we will multiply it. So B squared times B is B cubed, and C times C is C squared. Alright. We cannot group any of these together, so this will be our final answer. Okay, so just a reminder for you guys when you're doing this, remember when you have variables like a, b squared times c, b, then you see which terms are common. Oh, a isn't common, you bring a down. C isn't common, bring c down. But b is, so b squared times b to the power 1 is b cubed. So that is how this lesson is structured. If you guys have any questions, please ask me to clarify. If not, this is the end.